backseat, hitchhike, and take a long ride on my motorbike until I'm ready. Crazy little thing called love. This thing called love.
Tonight and meet you all here in Clarenville, Newfoundland, a place that I've been to before and very much enjoyed my stay here. I was here with a couple of the members of Bell's team for the Olympic torch relay. You were there. Well, I was that loud voice up on the stage welcoming the torch. So it's great to be back. As usual, that we are doing that. We are bringing Clara's message and Bell Let's Talk message to these communities to make sure that everyone gets a chance to join the conversation. And I'd like to invite at this time, before we go into more details about Bell Let's Talk, we have a tradition that happens on the road where we have members of Parliament, members of the local legislature, and also the mayors, the warships, that sign a map of commitment. And I'd like to invite at this time the Mayor of Clarenville, His Worship Fraser Russell, to join us up front, Mr. Russell, and also a local House of Assembly rep for District of Trinity North, and he's also the Speaker of the House of Assembly. Please welcome also Ross Wiseman. These gentlemen will be signing the map of commitment, committing this region. So His Worship are now including you in Clara's big ride, a ride that she'll tell you has become much more Canada's big ride because we are meeting lots of people and lots of people are talking. We've heard some great stories, we've heard some tragic stories, but it has just proven, it has just been the foundation of why Clara and Bell are doing this. We are doing this. I'm not going to let our keynote speaker tell you more about it. She has been with them for 4 years, quite an interesting story, coming off an illustrious sporting career where she won 6 Olympic medals in 6 Olympic Games. Yes. She is the only athlete in the world, men and women combined, of every Olympic nation to have won multiple medals in summer and winter games. You all know that golden smile. She's a great Canadian, but she's first and foremost for us, the spokesperson for Bell Let's Talk. Clarenville, please give a warm welcome to Clara Hughes.
Amazing. We always hear numbers of, well, we expect this many people, we're hoping for that many, and this is a room full, and that is awesome in my book. So thank you so much for coming out tonight. It's a rainy night, so it's nice to be inside. We were outside for 148 kilometers today from Gander on our bicycles. As you know, this is a big bicycle ride, and we left this morning after having a great meeting with the youth group there. And we left in the rain, it rained, and then it rained some more, then we stopped in the rain, we had a break in the bus and changed all our clothes, we got out, it was still raining, and then we rolled into town in the rain. So I learned that a 76% chance of rain in this part of Newfoundland means it's going to rain all day long. And it was raining so much, and yesterday we didn't have any rain, but we had a wicked headwind into Gander. So it took us forever to get there, and it was a 98-kilometer ride, and we were just like counting down the kilometers. So we had a block headwind for the first 50K, which was right in our face, slowing us down. We were going like 15 kilometers an hour at times, and when we rolled into Gander, we were just exhausted, and we had this greeting from one of the search and rescue helicopters. The guys did a low-flying flyby with one of them hanging up the door of the helicopter waving at us. And that was pretty cool. And today I can tell you that rain didn't come with a headwind. So relatively, it was an easier day. But I still completely wore out a pair of brake pads on my bike. About 20 kilometers from here, I went to brake on one of the descents, and I was like, I actually have no brakes right now. So we had to stop and get Dave Walsh, who's in the follow car behind us, who is our mechanic and a great guy, and he had to change him out. So before we rode the last 20K into town, It has been quite a ride. I think we hit 4,750 kilometers today. And I was supposed to be here a little earlier, and I apologize I'm a little late, but it took us longer to get here. Like I said, we had a mechanical breakdown, we had all that rain, so thanks for giving me a bit of extra time. It has been one heck of a ride, and we started March 14th in Toronto, and this winter to end all winters. I'm from Winnipeg, and I know winter, but winter has changed since I was a young girl, a wee lass. And now it's back to the good old days, or if you could call them that, of real Canadian winter. So I was slightly terrified whilst training in Tucson, Arizona for this ride, where it was the warmest winter in a long time. It was like, you know, some days it was 29 degrees Celsius, and everyone's writing to me on Strava and on Facebook, like, shouldn't you be in Canada training for this ride? It's freezing up here. And so we put in thousands of kilometers, we being me and my husband, Peter Guzman, who's been on this ride every kilometer of the way. I somehow managed to rope him into it. I'm very convincing at times. I told him there's going to be lots of food. We've eaten a lot of food. We've lost count of our Timbit intake. We're actually getting kind of burnt out on them, so we're eating the Donairs here from Pizza Delight. Those are pretty good. But we've been eating a lot, we've been riding a lot, we've been riding through snow and sleet and hail and rain and hills and wind. And we started in Toronto, like I said, left Maple Leaf Square on March 14th, rolled down through Windsor, then back up through Ontario into Quebec, through northern Quebec, north on the St. Lawrence River, and then back down all the way through New Brunswick, where we entered Atlantic Canada. And it has been so awesome, and we have 2 more days left in Newfoundland, and then we have 3 stops in Labrador, Happy Valley, Goose Bay, Hopedale, and then the northernmost community, Nain. And we're going to be really, really, really sad to leave this part of Canada. I know it well, and my husband Peter knows it well. We have a few crew members. One of them, Dave, who I mentioned, is from Austin, Texas, and he didn't even know what Atlantic Canada was, and he's already planning a motorcycle trip with his wife through Atlantic Canada now, a Texan. Everybody, we just love it. And what's been really special, of course, is the warmth and the friendliness, but to me it's just how real everybody is, and how grounded everybody is, and how I feel like, it takes a bit to win the hearts, especially of the Newfoundlanders, but I feel like we've got some street cred after we've ridden across this island in basically winter. We're getting, as Randy said, a lot of honks along the way. I pretty much have learned to not look when I wave, because I wave at every person who honks. And so at first I was waving and looking, and then almost crashing into Peter or my other riding partner Mark Walter's wheel. I almost took myself out a couple times waving at everyone honking at us. And now it's just like, this is the reflex, this is how I ride. It's like this. And then I switch arms, because everybody is giving us just honks of hello, thumbs up, waves, and I know fundamentally from all the communities we've been through here in Newfoundland, it's not because of the 6 Olympic medals that I've won. It is because of mental health, and it's because of the connection to mental health and the awareness that we're trying to bring in each community and to elevate, because I know there's awareness everywhere, but there's also stigma everywhere. And what we're trying to do is change the nature of the conversation when it comes to mental health. I've had a chance to take part in this campaign the last 4 years, the Bell Let's Talk campaign. And when I quit sport in 2012 after the London Olympics, my 6th Olympic Games, I suddenly had all this time on my hands. I have a lot of energy. Obviously, I spent 23 years in the world of sport, and I was basically left with this decision of what more can I do? Because the last 2 years that I competed, and I was taking part in Bell Let's Talk Day and doing so much media and so many events for Bell Let's Talk and this campaign, but it was more the response that I would get from Canadians when I was in Canada every single day. In every airport, if I was in the States and there were Canadians there, everybody that was approaching me and telling me that this mattered to them, telling me their personal stories, telling me the struggles of their family or their coworker or their friend or someone they knew or themselves. and saying that things are shifting, but we have so much work to do. So I literally, in the last year of my athletic life, was wondering why I was training for an Olympics when there was so much work to do in mental health. I really questioned why I was putting time into training for something like the Olympics, which for me was a pretty big deal in my life, because this came to matter so much because of the response of Canadians. And so tonight, if I can share a little bit with you about what my path was, not just in sport, but where I come from, and how sport entered my life, and then what sport gave to me, what sport did to me, what I learned from it, and eventually what I learned to give from sport. It's a huge odyssey that went over 23 years, but it all started a long time before that. It started for me in Winnipeg, where I was born and raised, and I did not grow up in a sporting family, and I can see by this audience that you are a sporting community. I didn't grow up in this community. This is like a big mountain to me. I'm from the prairies. I didn't know what skiing was. I didn't even know what the Olympics were, because I grew up in a family that was more interested in the arts, in literature, and my father was a university professor, and I grew up doing community sport because that's all that was available. I grew up in a lower income part of town, inner city Winnipeg, and the Olympics were not on anybody's mind. So I grew up playing ringette, and hockey, and softball, and soccer, and gymnastics even. Whatever my friends did, I got involved with. Wherever my friends drove their kids to, I tagged along because my parents didn't drive. And I also grew up in a family environment that was a really tough one. It was really dysfunctional. My dad had a major substance abuse problem and was pretty verbally abusive towards my mom, and that's what I grew up as thinking was normal as a family environment. That family environment broke up when I was 9 years old, my sister was 11, and my dad basically just left the house and didn't live there anymore. We never really knew why. And at that time, my sister and I, after growing up in that environment, being kids, not knowing what was wrong and why it was wrong, and feeling like, I know for myself, like I should have been able to fix it somehow as a 5-year-old. Totally irrational, but you know how 5-year-olds think. They just wonder what they can and can't do and why they can and can't do it. So I grew up with that, and when my parents split up, my sister and I both tried to find our place in the world, our place in Winnipeg, our place in school, and my sister started getting into a lot of trouble. And of course I wanted to be like my sister, so I followed in her footsteps. When I was 13 years old, I started smoking and drinking and doing drugs. When I was 16 years old, I wasn't going to school anymore, and I was doing a lot of what I just mentioned, more and more every day, spending more time on the streets of Winnipeg, thinking that's where I wanted to be, more than I wanted to be at home. And I got really lucky at that time, because something called the Olympics entered my mind and my life and my world. And they entered through the television screen. I actually was flipping through the channels in my mom's living room, bored out of my skull, wondering what party I was going to go to that night. And I came upon the Olympics from Calgary, the 1988 Olympics. And I saw Gaetan Boucher skate for his last time. I saw him skate on the long track. And I saw something so beautiful and someone so incredibly inspiring by the way he did what he did and how he poured himself into what he did. And it changed my life. I connected to something so beautiful and positive that I just knew that was what I was going to do. I had really no right to think that was what I was going to do, because I didn't even know what long track speed skating was and didn't even really know or care what the Olympics were until that moment in time. But you know when you see something and you just know? It was that kind of moment for me. So that night I told my mom, this is what I want to do. I saw Gaetan, he's amazing, and he didn't win that day. He ended up in 9th place. But how he did what he did and how he poured himself into that something is what I connected to, that intensity. And I was just like, Mom, I'm going to be like Gaetan, he's amazing, he almost won, he was on world record pace, but he didn't, he blew up, and he finished in 9th place, and that's what I want to do, and that's what I told my mom. And my mom, being the amazing woman that she is, always trying to keep my sister and me out of trouble, she found a way to get me involved. And I went to my first practice on hockey skates with my ringette helmet, full face mask, thinking I was going to keep up with the short trackers, thinking I was going to keep up for maybe a lap. And they left me in their dust. But I saw people right in front of my eyes that were so good at something and trained to do something, that they motivated me and inspired me to get skates, to get a cool helmet and a skin suit and work for all of those things and maybe make the Manitoba team and maybe travel to Saskatchewan, maybe Quebec, maybe somewhere out of Canada someday. I had never even been further than Winnipeg Lake. Seriously, my world was very, very small. But what sport did for me is it effectively shifted the direction of my life. And it not only did that, not only changed my life, I can honestly say this day that it saved my life. I have friends who never got off that path. I have a sister who still struggles to this day with drug addiction, and she has suffered with manic depressive disorder for the last 24 years, and deep, severe depression. She tries to be the best mom that she can every day, but it is a struggle. And I have my sister as an example of where my life could have gone. And believe me, I'm proud of her. I'm proud of the path that she walks every day. But I have an example of where my life could have gone without sport, and it's very real, and it's very close to me. So I went on this path and got recruited into cycling. Didn't even know that was a sport after skating only a year and a half. And I still always kept it in my mind that I was going to go back to the ice. I thought maybe in a couple of years I'll give this cycling thing a try. I did a few races, and at that time I trained for the Western Canada Games, which felt like the Olympics because they were in Winnipeg. And I know the Newfoundland Winter Games were just here, right? So you saw it in the kids. You saw how much it meant to them. And I want to say thank you, everybody, for that, because I remember what it was like being that kid and having something so big to train for. That is where my athletic life started, Western Canada Games. And from there, I went to Pan American Games, to World Championships, to Commonwealth Games, and for ultimately my first Olympic Games as a cyclist. But all the while, as I became good and became great and became one of the best in the world at what I was trying to be, and that was an Olympian, I still had these feelings inside, these feelings of confusion, these feelings of loneliness, these feelings sometimes of absolute hatred and self-loathing, of guilt from growing up in that environment, that I still felt this intrinsic feeling of guilt that I couldn't fix. My subconscious was always telling me that I was a failure, even when I was winning. And so when I went to my first Olympics, and I came back with 2 Olympic medals, 2 bronze medals. I raced twice, I got on the podium twice, I won Canada's first medal and Canada's last medal of those games. And I came back to Hamilton, Ontario, where I lived at the time, and everybody knew who I was. Everyone was buying me a coffee at Timbits at Tim Hortons, and everyone was like, I saw you, this was what I was doing when you were racing, and I saw the guy running up beside you on the hill with the Canadian flag, and everybody knew every step that the Olympics were for me. And they wanted to see my medals, and they felt like they were part of my medals, and I felt like they liked those medals more than me. Because inside, that void that was there and that emptiness and guilt and all of those very real emotions that I had been ignoring and really believed that if I won something big, they would finally go away, they didn't go away. It broke wide open. And those feelings only got worse and deeper and harder and more confusing. And as the weeks turned into months, all I could do was eat, sleep, and cry. And everyone expected me to be this champion. I started hiding out. I didn't want to go out of my house because I didn't want anyone to see me, because all I was doing was crying, and I was putting on weight, and I felt like I wasn't an athlete anymore. I wasn't what people expected me to be. I felt like I didn't want to be here anymore, to be quite honest. And I got really lucky because that winter, when I went to a training camp, because I had no choice but to go to this training camp in Victoria, that the national team doctor confronted me on what she saw. She, of course, did the routine physical, but she sat me down and she said, Clara, what is going on here? There's something that is not right. Let's talk about it. And I just started bawling my eyes out. I was like, I don't know, I just can't stop crying, and these feelings, and I just feel like nothing, and everyone expects this of me, and I don't know what to do, and I don't want to be here, and I don't want to be anywhere. And she talked to me about depression, and she explained to me what depression was, and she explained to me all the different ways I could get help, and how different it was for every single person that struggled, and that I had to find what worked for me, and she was there to help, and people were there to help. And you'd think that I'd be like, yeah, this is great, let's do it together. But no, I'm pretty stubborn. I mean, I rode 148K in the pouring rain today, dirt in my eyeballs that are still there. I basically sat there and inside I was like, you're not going to tell me I'm depressed. No one's going to tell me that I am depressed. I will show you that I'm not depressed. I'm going to go and fix myself and make myself better, and then I'll be back and win more races, and I'll show you all. That's how I felt inside. It took me about 2 years to realize that I was depressed, that I couldn't get over it myself, and that I shouldn't want to get over it myself, and I didn't win Olympic medals by myself, so how could I get over something as big as depression by myself? It took me 2 years that I lost from my life in sport and my life, because I was stubborn, and because I induced a stigma on me when there was no stigma around me, when everyone was there to help, when I didn't lose my job, when I didn't lose my place on the national team. I actually had all of the support in place, I just would not accept it. And when I finally did, it was after quitting sport and never thinking I was going to come back. I came back because I realized I could get help, but also I could do this in different ways. I could have a more positive environment than the coach who had pushed me so hard to get those Olympic medals, the training that I did that was too much to get those Olympic medals, that there are so many different ways to do the same thing, just like there are so many different ways for a person to live and cope and manage in their life something like depression. Each one of us is so different, and so I found a new coach and a new way, and I came back to sport. And I want to share with you one story that I haven't shared on this whole ride in 43 days, because I'm in the sporting world here with very like-minded people. The thing that really had the most profound impact on me, it was coming back, and it was having a coach who believed in me, and having a great team and a great environment, and just feeling like finally I was actually going to go to the Olympics and not just have great races, but to be able to enjoy them, which ultimately in the end is the most important thing, is to actually feel good about what you do no matter the result. So my new coach, Eric Van Den Eyne, brought me back to life, taught me why it was good, taught me how to train properly and intelligently, and most importantly, to know when enough was enough and when more was needed, and that it was my decision. And so I prepared for the Sydney Olympics in 2000. I was doing my last set of races in France, and I got sick. Everything was going so good, and I had qualified for the games, and I was going to represent Canada again, and I got the whooping cough going up the Col de Tourmalet. And I had to quit the Tour de France and come back to Canada. I didn't know it was the whooping cough at the time, but I just thought, you know, it's a cold, it's a cough, I'll be better in 5 days, and then I'll be training again, and I'll be ready for the games in 2 months' time. Well, that cough turned into a choke, turned into this awful thing that would enter me every time I tried to go hard, every time I tried to sleep. I woke up and I felt like I was underwater. And by the time we left for the Sydney Olympics, left for Australia, I didn't even want to go, because I had lost 7 weeks of training at the level I expected myself to train at, the level I expected and needed to be competitive at the Olympics for. My coach, Eric, convinced me to go. And what he said was, Clara, you never know, you might have that day. It might not happen in the road race because it's so long, but it might happen in the time trial. Don't give up on that possibility. You've worked too hard for this. You've come through too much to give up. Let's go and let's see. So I reluctantly went to Sydney, and we trained outside of Sydney because it was a big city. We being me and my teammate Linda Sett. We stayed in some apartments. And it was about 9 days before the games started that we looked on the internet one morning, got up real early, because all of our teammates who didn't make the Olympics, we were on an international professional team, they were racing in Boston, Massachusetts. And they were doing the last race of a series of races that one of my teammates named Nicole Reinhardt, who is a beautiful 23-year-old American girl, big, beautiful eyes, and she didn't make her Olympic team. And I remembered when Nicole came from her Olympic trials, because we were rooming together at another race in Wisconsin, and she was crying, and I was like, don't worry, it's going to happen for you, it just wasn't your time, you'll see, it'll all make sense one day. So we set Nicole up to win all these races, because the prize was $250,000 if one person could win all 6 of them, and she had won 5. So I was really excited to see if Nicole won, because obviously we all got a split in the pie of $250,000. But also because she was our teammate and we wanted to see if she won the race. And so we were really excited because I wasn't feeling good and I'd been so sick and I didn't really want to be at the Olympics. And I was like, I'll just distract myself with what other people are doing. And I opened up the internet to CanadianCyclist.com and I read a headline that said tragedy in Boston. And I thought, well, she must have got flat, or she didn't win. And I opened up that link and I read that Nicole didn't win that race and that she had crashed 3 kilometers from the finish line. And I'm sorry, this is really sad, but I have to tell it. She hit a tree and she died on impact. And at that moment, I actually had been feeling sorry for myself because I was sick. And I felt like I wasn't good, and I felt like I shouldn't be there, and I felt like someone else should be there, and I didn't have what I wanted, which was fitness, which was strength, which was speed. And yet there I was at the Olympics. And I just read that someone so close to me and dear to so many of us would never live her dream. I screamed loud. I screamed so loud and Lynn came running into the room because she thought Nicole had won the race. And she was like, did she win? Did she win? And I was crying and I told her I just couldn't even read it. And I ran out of the room and I went into the bathroom and I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are that you're here feeling sorry for yourself? How could you have this attitude? And I just looked at myself and I said, you will finish this race. You will finish these races. And if you can't do it for yourself, you will do it for Nicole. And I went into the road race, and I finished in second last place. I finished a race where I shouldn't have been able to ride my bike that day. I should have been on a hospital bed. I finished a race where I got dropped 60 kilometers in and had 70 kilometers to go, and every girl that I was with dropped out of that race until I got to the last lap, and the last girl dropped out and said, let's just go into the warm cabanas and get something hot to drink. It's no point in finishing. We were 24 minutes behind the winners at that point. And I remember telling her, she's from Germany, and I was like, I'm not quitting. This is the Olympics. We have to finish. And she swore in German and then rode off. And I remember vividly doing that last lap, and I was like, kind of like, well, I am pretty far back. You know, are they going to like pull me off the course? And I'd never really been in that position before. And then I got around to Centennial Park with 3 kilometers to go, and they were pulling the barricades. I was so far back that they were actually removing the barricades from the road because there was no more crowd to control. And an Australian volunteer who was moving one of those metal barricades looked at me, he was like, put it down, he's like, finish with your head held at high, why don't you? And I looked at him, I was like, I will. And so I was all pumped up, and I go to the finish line, and it was like packed with people. I literally had to clip out of my pedal to get across that finish line. And unbeknownst to me, I was in second last place. And I finished, and I remember being so proud because that was the day I learned what excellence was and is, and that's giving everything you have for something and never, ever, ever giving up. 3 days later, I finished in 6th place, 11 seconds out of a bronze medal in the time trial. I did have that day that Eric convinced me of and made me believe in, and that I lived. After that, I went back to speed skating because I thought, I don't know how much longer I have in life. I had lost Nicole, and I was just like, you just have to live, and you have to live to your best capacity every day that you have. Brought me back to the ice. Brought me back to the here and the now of every day that I've lived since, quite honestly. Nicole has never left me. She reminds me every day, not just to try to be the best at what I do, but try to be better than myself. Because if I'm not good to myself, I can't be good to anybody else. Eric, my coach, helped me heal tremendously from a lot of damage that was done from a coach as a young athlete, from an upbringing in a dysfunctional family. I've had so much professional help along the way. I've had psychologists, I've had psychiatrists, I've had doctors, I've had healers. I have not done this alone. And as someone who lives and manages and copes with depression, I went on to win 4 more Olympic medals, a gold, a silver, and 2 bronze in speed skating, and then competed in 1 more Olympic Games in London with a broken back and finished in 5th place. And I'm telling you guys this tonight because there is so much stigma attached to mental illness. And it's always words like pathetic and just feeling sorry for themselves and can't do anything and just feel better. So if anybody ever talks about somebody like that and you're around, can you please let them know that you met this redheaded girl who rolled into your town on a pouring rain day after 148K with a bag full of Olympic medals, who lives with depression, and she's doing okay. And I'm doing more than that. To work in Sochi this year for CBC, for their Olympic coverage. I did an interview with 23-year-old Anastasia Busis, a long track speed skater who lives with depression and anxiety. And she represented Canada for her 2nd time. She finished in 28th place in her race, 2 places from last. And she said to me in our interview, she's like, you know what, Clara? I thought it was all about winning medals. But now it's just about feeling good about what I do. And today I felt good about what I did. I was in 2nd last place. And I feel good about it. 2 days later, I interviewed a Dutch speed skater who had won the gold medal in the 1,000-meter race. He had gone through 3 years of severe depression to the point of almost killing himself a year before. He had help to come back, and he won a gold medal that day. I got to interview him. And I asked him what that gold medal represented. This interview was never played on CBC because we are, after all, a hockey nation. As we know, Holland is a speed skating nation, but Stefan Groenhuis is his name. And what he said to me, what that medal represented for people, anybody who's struggling, is that there's always light to go to. And he said this gold medal represents that light and never, ever, ever give up. And so for me, what sport has led me to is the realization that it's not just about sharing the joy, these beautiful moments as an athlete that I got to share with all of Canada from coast to coast to coast. It's about sharing the struggle as well. And being a part of this campaign, creating the idea of this ride, of bringing this conversation to all corners of Canada and seeing how Canadians respond, and then bringing this collective message to our nation's capital on Canada Day, seeing what the possibilities of that are, and sharing the struggle along the way, and finding out how we're all interconnected by struggle, by joy, and that's what makes us beautiful human beings. And that is what this ride is teaching me. It teaches me every single day, and that is why I can honestly say this is the ride of my life. And these medals that I brought here tonight, these 6 Olympic medals, to be quite honest, wouldn't have much value at all if I hadn't learned to share what the struggle in them and what it really, really is. Because it's all mixed with the joy of the speed skating and the struggle of the cycling. And this is what it is. And what's more important is that we're here tonight and we're talking about mental health. And the Olympics too. But we're connected because of it all. So thank you very, very much for listening and being here and showing us on our big ride that's almost out of Newfoundland, and almost into Labrador, and almost into northern Canada, and then back into Victoria, and all the way across through the prairies, back into Ottawa, that you guys care. It means the world to us, and we're going to take it with us 148 rainy kilometers again tomorrow. Thank you very, very much.
I hear that 3 to 4 times a day, and it still comes and gets me. Especially when you talk about people like Eric, and you call people that were very close to me also. And Eric Vandenine is quite an extraordinary coach and has helped a lot of people despite his own suffering as a young man. So kudos to our friend Eric. There are great coaches out there like Eric, there are great trainers, and there are also great people that work in your communities. And Clara's Big Ride is all about that, the community. And as she said to someone tonight, and I was just because I heard them talking, she says, I've been working in this business for 23 years, and very few people knew that I worked in mental health and addiction services. But she says, since I started organizing this night, everybody here in town knows, and they're stopping me, and I say, sorry, there's no more tickets now. So please give a very warm welcome for our organizer tonight, Evelyn Tilley, who is the Mental Health Addiction Services Director there for our Please right here, come on up, Evelyn. And Evelyn, as it is another tradition for us, we will leave you a token of our appreciation, which is the official Clara Hughes Bell Let's Talk ride jersey, and it means that you are going with her tomorrow on the bike. Just kidding.
I know, I'm afraid I'm feeling her arm right now.
And Evelyn, I think you and your team also have a little presentation for Clara.
Clara, you are so awesome. Thank you for coming to Clarenville. We really want to thank you for coming, and we want to give you a memento of Clarenville. So my team, if you could come up, we want to present you with a print, and it's a print by Raleigh Fitzgerald. Raleigh is an artist here, so this is a print of Clarenville.
Oh, I love it.
Strong's Point in Clarenville. I don't know if you're familiar with Strong's Point, but that's what the picture is.
I love it. I love it. So beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
You're all gonna run.
We're gonna have a whole echelon going. Peloton. Sunshine. You know what? I know we're not gonna have sunshine. I've said this from the beginning. I'm like, we're not gonna have warmth until we get to like Vancouver, and then we're probably not gonna have sunshine there either. We're up for it. We're up for it. Do we all see it?
Yeah.
Okay. You go first.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Create the moment, by the way.
Well, thank you again, everyone. And Randy said he hears me 2 to 3 times a day, and I can tell you that I never give the same speech twice. Because I don't see it as speeches, I see it as storytelling. And storytelling is always inspired by the audience and by who you're connecting to. And you guys really, really inspired me tonight. Believe me, I'm so tired. So tired. I was in the room when I was trying. I was like, told my husband Peter, I was like, does it look like my hair's wet? Because it is wet, because I just got out of the shower. And my thing with this ride is, okay, how can I spend the least amount of time on my hair? Because I got a lot of hair. And I just washed it yesterday. So I curled it and everything, and this morning one of our crew, Dana, said, your hair's so nice, your curls are so nice, how do you get them to stay? I'm like, it's all in the product. I do it. So I was giving her this big, like, it's all in the product, and I got this great thing. And then my hair is covered in dirt and rain today and all the road dirt, so I was like, God, I gotta wash my hair again. So anyway, some nights I have better hair than others. Tonight, you know, one of those nights.
invite Evelyn back. Our two municipal and also MHA reps have a few words to say to you. So Evelyn?
Gee, how do you follow someone like that? I have the honor to introduce our mayor, Mayor Fraser Russell. Mr. Russell has been involved in many aspects of life in Clarenville for the last 40 years. He was chair of the '94 Winter Games and of course involved in the most recent Winter Games as well. He's previously served on council for 12 years and most recently at our last election was elected mayor of Clarenville. Welcome, Mr. Russell.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of my fellow councillors and the residents of Clarenville, it gives me great pleasure to welcome Clara and all members of Clara's Big Ride team to our town. When Bell announced the official route of this great tour last October in Montreal, I wondered if Clarenville would be one of the 95 lucky communities. So when Evelyn contacted me about this event, I was delighted with the good news. Wow, a chance to meet and hear a 6-time Olympian. I knew that Clara would have an important message about the mental health issues that would be both inspiring and encouraging. Clara, you have not disappointed. We thank you for this tremendous opportunity to hear you here this evening. Clara, you are more than a famous, well-decorated, successful Olympian. Because you have chosen to use your fame for such a positive and uplifting project, I want to say you are a true Canadian hero. And we like to say that you are someone that we want our youth to emulate. Your stay in Clarenville will be brief, but your message and your heightened awareness of mental illness issues will last a long time. Thank you for your visit and good luck with the rest of your journey.
You can tell I like this, eh?
Thank you, Mayor Russell. Now to introduce our MHA, Ross Wiseman. The Honourable Ross Wiseman is the MHA for the District of Trinity North and currently is the Speaker of the House of Assembly. Ross was first elected 15 years ago today. Wow, congratulations. Since that time, he's held numerous portfolios in government, including Minister of Health and Community Services, Minister responsible for Aging and Seniors, Minister of Business, Minister of Environment and Conservation. And since October 2011, Ross has been Speaker of the House of Assembly. Welcome, Ross.
Claire, what a powerful message. Thank you very much for visiting our province. It's always a challenge when you follow a motivational and inspirational speaker, but one also that delivers a powerful message for all of us. And we want to thank you for that. Reminding all of us of how much mental illness and mental health affects not only us as individuals, affects our communities, affects our families, and all of us through your efforts and your message have now heightened awareness of the real impact it has on us as a community and us as a people. But also, equally as important, the responsibility we all have to share with you our responsibilities as members of the community who have a real role to play in eliminating the stigma associated with mental illness and recognizing that we all have a role to play in supporting others who are living with mental illness as community members. You know, as members of governments, Fraser and myself, we often talk about their role and responsibility in providing infrastructure supports and supporting health and education and facilities such as this. But there's also a responsibility we have as leaders in our communities to ensure that we improve the quality of life of all of us who live here. And a big part of that commitment to improve the quality of life of the communities that we live in is the recognition that there are many people in our communities who are living with many forms of illnesses. And mental illness happens to be one of those. And we need to recognize that as we treat physical ailments, we need to react and respond and appreciate and understand that the many other people who live in our communities and maybe our neighbors or friends, someone in our family who's living with a mental illness and needs our support as well. And we have a responsibility to reach out and support. And through messages such as yours, Claire, using your stature, your fame, and public recognition, that name recognition that you have, to bring attention in a very public way to an issue that affects all of us. So on behalf of all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, thank you for bringing your message to us and reminding us of our responsibility to join you in delivering this message to all of us. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your stay in this province.
Thank you to our two dignitaries. Well, it's time for us now to get to bed, especially get this lady to bed because she's got another day of writing. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Remember, bell.ca/Clara's Big Ride. All the information is on there. Hashtag Clara's Big Ride, capital C, B, and R. Join the conversation. Support Clara. Be there on the road. She reads them and she knows you're there. Thank you, Clara.